This video is going to absolutely transform your life because I'm going to show you how you can make the ego release all of the attachments, all of our addictions, all of those overthinking thoughts, all of the things that are truly challenging in this fucking life that we're living, that is creating resistance also towards the universe, bringing something much more amazing into our lives. Because in order to live a truly fulfilling life, you need to live in a detached state where you're open to receive everything that your higher self has in store for you. And today I'm going to explain to you exactly how this works and how you can satisfy the ego, give it the need that it always was looking to have met, so that it can drop its guard, so that it can release the weapons and find peace in this present moment, so that you're free to create the life that you want to live, my friend. So, in order to explain this, I'm going to need a couple of minutes, so I suggest that you sit tight, because it's very hard to make this shift without first understanding how this shift that I'm going to present to you now actually works. Because to the mind, this can seem a little bit far-fetched. How can this shift bring me what it is that I'm actually searching for? So let's get right into it. The ego is severely misunderstood. People want to abolish or to destroy, kill the ego, dissolve it, remove it, move away from it. And this is the source of the problem to begin with. Because your ego, my friend, is just a little child looking for your love and validation. And when it is receiving that love and validation, it is no longer going to attach itself to things within the personality, our thoughts, our behavior, reaction, attitudes, and so on, that are not good for us. It's no longer going to hold on to those things so tightly, because those things were only ever held on to tightly because it was very confused and thought that I needed these things in order to be whole and complete. Because the ego is in a very deep state of belief at this moment, when it has a lot of attachments, that it is not whole and complete as it is. That it is fundamentally broken, that there is something wrong with it, and that it is always going to have to change itself. And when we view the ego through that lens of, you need to go away, you're separate from me, and you're an enemy of me, then we're always going to not be able to give the ego what it needs, which is just love and validation, because that is when the ego starts to surrender. That is when the ego starts to not move out of the way, but to become an integrated part of who you are that is loyal to your higher self. So, first of all, what is your higher self? It is the awareness that you are, that goes beyond this body and this vehicle that you're operating from at this part of your life. And I said this in a quote a couple of days ago, that you are an infinite being looking into the world. You are not a tiny human looking out into the world. Even though it appears as such, while you are still identified with the ego, with the body, with the emotions, and that you are still living in reactivity to it, not ever being consciously open and broad to deeper truths of this reality to fall into place, because you've been living in that survival mode for a very long time, where the truth of who it is that you are doesn't have room to enter into your awareness. But basically, in order for this shift to occur that I'm talking about today, it's very important for you to come into this self-realization first, that you're not the ego, you're not the mind, you're not these emotions. And that you have the capacity as your higher self to be aware of these things. Because your higher self is just pure love and abundance. And your ego at this time is always escaping the present moment of being here. Because it is terrified of being here in the light of your higher self. Because it doesn't believe that it's worthy of the love and abundance that exists so naturally for the higher self. It has written down into itself from experiences that if I am this part of who I am, then I'm not good enough. So I'm going to abandon this part of me, suppress that emotional part that arose, this realization to begin with, because we're always experiencing our emotional world first as the beings that we are. So you might have a sensation of fear, anger, shame, guilt, or so on from an experience in your past. And in combination with that, a parent perhaps that was supposed to give you unconditional love in this moment to show you that it's okay to be who you are, instead got triggered by you and told you, no, you're not supposed to do this, or blah, 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 whatever it is. There's a million of these stories. There's a society that wants you to be in a specific way. There's a family that are expecting you to do certain things. And the normal on this planet is that of the environment not coming into full acceptance over who it is that you are, but rather see you as a pawn to be something. You're supposed to be a doctor, you're supposed to be this type of person, you're supposed to fit into the family dynamic of our own traumas and so on. And so in this process, we slowly start to disidentify with parts of who it is that we really are internally within us, and the ego is always creating a new attachment every single time that there is a part of us that we're not in connection with anymore, that we are trying to abandon. And so the ego creates a lot of distractions to always be occupied by. Me myself, I used to be very caught up in trying to be the best in a lot of things that I was doing. I was also looking for, searching for success, feeling like I'm not good enough, trying to prove my worth at all times. And this was my ego being extremely active, as it didn't deem who I truly and authentically was to be worthy of love and belonging and acceptance. And this of course originates from these things in our past. As we're growing up, we are met with a lot of resistance from our environment to our authentic selves. It is very triggering for an environment to experience a person that is embodying their authentic selves when that person also has parts about who they are that they do not allow to shine through, because when that is being shined through another person, it triggers that person, because it reminds them that this person here is showing and being vulnerable with a part of themselves that I myself have not allowed myself to exist with. And so it is extremely triggering to see a person being so fully in love with who it is that they are and being able to express their needs and so on, perhaps, or whatever it is, because that makes them be reminded about the belief or limiting belief that they have that, oh, if I am expressing this part that they are expressing, that means that I am not loved. And so they should feel in the same way. They should also not be loved for expressing and being in this way. That's why people get triggered by each other, because it reminds them of their own painful limiting beliefs. Anyways, the only way to actually give your ego the love that it was always searching for is to allow it to sit in the presence of your higher self, your awareness, and to exist with it and treat it as just a child throwing a tantrum. Because that is truly what it's doing. It's a confused little child looking for love and validation and simultaneously believing it's not worthy of it. And so it is doing something that is completely opposite to what it is that it actually wants. Perhaps looking for the success or screaming and yelling or doing whatever it's doing, because it is a painful reflection of not believing that this part that they just want to express and have unconditional love for can't have that sort of response. You can't do that. They believe, or the ego believes, that is not supposed to happen. So the only way to actually heal the ego back into finding peace within this moment, where it no longer attaches itself to all of those things that kept us in a state of attachments where life was challenging, is to be brave now and to start living a lifestyle where you are more in the present moment and where you are able to sit as the awareness that you truly are, as your higher self, with the ego and the emotions, the body, the vehicle, and not allow it to take action on things anymore that previously happened as a distraction. But to sit with it and to do things also, not just sit all the fucking time, but do things that connect you to this present moment. For example, following your joy, something that you've been holding yourself back from doing. Connecting to the present moment as your higher self, as the awareness, doesn't just mean that you're sitting still. In a lot of cases, just sitting still here and doing nothing and just waiting is also just as much of a problem as taking action on something for the wrong reason. It's about connecting to this present moment and the allowance of it. You'll have to realize that your ego doesn't always want to sit still and it doesn't always want to take action. the video just cut off for a second. I hope you got that part, that the ego doesn't always want to sit still and it doesn't always want to take action. And to understand what you're supposed to be doing in this moment is not about thinking your way there, but to finally start feeling and observing your way there, to see what is coming naturally to you. You don't necessarily need to sit in a meditation all fucking day. You don't necessarily need to take action on something all fucking day. You start doing what brings conscious awareness into this moment. For me, for example, I stopped scrolling on my YouTube and looking at my feed. And I also stopped playing video games for a period now, even though I'll probably come back at some point because I like them. But for the time being, I decided that for this, let's say a month or so, I'm going to completely stop it and experience this place for a while, where I am pretty much at all times doing something that's connecting me to conscious presence. And I have truly noticed how this is making a massive difference in my life. And there's no real shortcut to healing the inner child and to become at peace with the ego and to find balance with the higher self and the ego. It has to be this process of sitting and experiencing yourself and to no longer react to it, which becomes a whole lot simpler and a lot easier when you realize, first of all, that you're not this and that you can be aware of it and that it can be uncomfortable. And just because it is uncomfortable doesn't mean that it's bad. It's supposed to be a little bit uncomfortable. Because as you connect back to this being of who you are, you'll realize that that shame and that fear and that anger and that guilt that you suppressed for so long starts moving up again. I talked a lot about this in a video a couple of days ago, so I'm going to leave a link to it down here below, where you can learn a little bit more about this balance or this creation of how the ego is created from this emotional state to begin with. It's very interesting. When you start to give love to your ego in the form of allowing it to exist in this moment as it is right now without having to prove itself, change itself, but to be perfectly whole and complete as if it was that already in this moment, because it truly is. That's when everything's gonna come around for you, my friend. When you stop trying to change yourself, because truly you can't change yourself. You are what you are, my friend. And some people, when they hear that, they think, I'm these overthinking thoughts of these parts, challenging parts of my personality, I'm an asshole or whatever. No, you're not. Truly, your authentic higher self is just that of abundance and love. It's a beautiful thing. And if you thought that you were something other than that, then that is you identifying with the ego. Who you truly are is something beautiful and amazing, my friend. And you can't really escape that. You're supposed to be that. And then everything starts to come around for you. You're supposed to feel anger, you're supposed to feel shame, guilt, and all of these things. And that gives you the capacity to experience life as your higher self. So I think we can round up this video right here. When you start loving your ego through the present moment awareness of your higher self, sitting here and allowing things to play themselves out as they are, no longer reacting by realizing in those moments of those overthinking thoughts and being stuck in the procrastination and so on, always scrolling your phone or what it is that you did previously in your life, that now you're introducing a conscious habit instead that is taking you into this moment, realizing that it can get uncomfortable here. But the greatest discomfort is still just the belief that you're not supposed to be here, not the experience itself, because the belief that you're not supposed to be here creates the suffering. But this belief is going to continue to be here as long as the emotion that created the belief hasn't been fully felt. And the reason why it's not fully felt is because the ego is still holding on to the belief, because it doesn't believe that it can be loved for this emotion. But when you start to sit more in this present moment, you'll start to awaken to the sensations of your body again and the things that grew numb within your body through these unconscious practices that you had in your life. And then slowly, as you are met with this uncomfortable space again, and as you sit there or do things of a conscious nature, you are going to connect back and integrate and become a part of these things again, as you are showing this whole being of this lifetime that they have here, that I love you, through this acceptance of allowing it to exist in this moment as it is. Watch the thoughts, watch the body, and just become aware of it, because that is the powerful healing, the most powerful healing that you possess. Giving that light of your higher self-awareness to it, that's going to heal it, because then it will receive the love and validation it always sought, but was so confused about that it didn't even understand that it wanted. But it will now finally see again what it wanted, and it will find peace and become a loyal follower of your higher self and your dreams, so that you can get there in a beautiful way together. Because you two are supposed to be a team here. You're not supposed to be enemies. And you never were enemies. It was just a little lost child inside of you that wanted your love and attention. And this is the way to give it to it, to allow it to exist as it is, perfectly whole and complete, as it always was. If you want to learn more about this, make sure to check out my live streams and courses and stuff down below, and I'll see you in my next video, my friends. Bye bye.